If you want to make more money with Facebook ads using big caps, you're going to want to watch this video. Over the last year, I've been experimenting a ton with big caps, cost caps against automated or loads cost with Facebook. Why? Well, we're seeing steady rise in CPMs and just cost of traffic as a whole. We're not seeing necessarily a jump and increase in proportion with what we get paid as lead generators, as pay-per-callers, as affiliates. So we need some kind of edge aside from just producing creative to maximize every click and get the lowest possible cost per acquisition, cost per lead, cost per purchase, whatever your objective is. So I want to share with you some strategies that you can use that I'm experimenting with and actively using today with Facebook ads. And this is going to basically help you, right? You're going to get more stability, more consistency. And this is all assuming you already have something that's relatively working or working to an extent, meaning an offer, either your own or someone else's. It can be a brand of yours. It can be a funnel of yours with lead generation, with e-com, doesn't matter. And then you also have creatives that have some kind of validity to it, right? So basically more or less like you're seeing success to some extent, but you either want to get a higher margin or more consistency or more scale or all of the above. So this all comes from offer and creative and then funnel as well, right? So if you look at my ad account here, today it is May 8th when I'm filming this. I'm going to show you a strategy we just started playing with big caps that has done really well and is continuing to do well. So this is a offer that we already have been running for a while. We've been seeing an average cost per lead of, let's say, $200. So it's all these campaigns you see up here. So the reason why I want to highlight this is because it's a newer offer. So we're already seeing kind of like where we needed to be because we get paid on a closed deal with this. So the cost per lead that we're measuring in the ads manager can and will fluctuate a bit, which we're fine with. It's a very niche offer. But I wanted to see, can we drive it down even more? Can we drive up our margin even more by getting our cost per lead down? Because in theory, if the close rate remains consistent, the payout doesn't change for the deal that we get paid on. If we get the same lead, but at like half the price or even 30% cheaper, that should put more money in our pocket and give us more room to scale. I'll show you the big cap strategy we're using right now with this. And then also I will show you some other strategies that we actively use and how to set them up for yourself, right? So really simple what I did. So traditionally what we do is we run everything one ad per ad set most of the time, sometimes 3 to 5 ads per ad set, but like in this scenario, we're going pretty hard at this. So one ad per ad set, and we're just going to let things run until, or more or less like around our target CPL, either under, at, or above, depending on number of ad sets we test, how much money we will spend, a lot of factors. But the general idea is we do one ad per ad set, we isolate it, we don't let Facebook make the decisions, and we see what gets multiple conversions. Like this one is producing, it's not a ton of data, right? So this could just not convert again until we spend like $500. But like right here, that looks like an early winner. But once again, we need more data, so I wouldn't even trust this. So that's auto bid, lowest cost, everything's default. We don't do any kind of like big cap, cost cap. Now, what I've been doing, and you're actually seeing if you look at the lifetime here, this one spent about double, but this one's had more leads, at least tracked in Ads Manager. So what we did here was we did a big cap. I saw my average cost per lead was $200 before. So I put the big cap at $200. And what I'm finding is that not only is it crushing, right? Because, well, a few things. A, because this new round of creatives is definitely doing better. Like we're seeing an average lower CPL between the old method where we do one ad per ad set, lowest cost. And then obviously like big cap is making it even superior in all ways when it comes to costs, right? But more or less, like we're just taking the same creative test. We're running one as auto bid, lowest cost, and then we're duplicating it, turning it into CBO, and then we're putting a big cap on. And that big cap is going to be generally relative to what you've historically seen in an ad account, or if you know you absolutely need to be under $200 to get a conversion, for example, or you lose money, you could set it there, or maybe a little bit over, right? So if we're talking the same scenario, let's say you get paid on the lead, $200 a lead. Okay. So that means you could spend up to $200 to basically break even. Generally, you're going to get the most consistent volume if you're overbidding by 10 to 20%. So your actual bid is probably going to be 220 to 240. It might work at 200. Like if I look at today's spend, this thing's crushing. And yeah, this is a good bid. Now, we're seeing also a new average CPL, probably because of the creatives, right? Like here's our old creatives. I turned this campaign off, $350. Yesterday, this thing was at $219, not bad. But yeah, bottom line is like new creatives are adjusting our baseline target CPL, right? Because we're just seeing better numbers, like cheaper cost per conversion on the lead. So I'll probably even be able to bring the bid down more. But right now, like I set this bid more or less based off of the original target of 200. I set it at 200 because I was confident we were going to get better cost per lead with the new creatives, which we did. So I can bring this down more if I wanted to, but generally, let's say it didn't move the needle. We're still coming around $200. I would then move this into a big cap campaign at like 220 to 240 or higher, which we'll talk about next. But for this strategy, generally what I'm doing, and this is something you should absolutely test, set it up on AutoBid, lowest cost, one ad per ad set, a bunch of ad sets. Like I got 73 in here, right? $30 a day each. And we're just letting this thing run. And then here I duplicated it, turned it into a CBO, and I applied a big cap at the payout we were seeing on average. Okay. You could bid a little bit higher if you need to, but generally that's what I would do. That's strategy number one. Super simple. You basically don't change anything. You just duplicate the type of creative testing you're doing. If you're doing the ABO style that I've always talked about, and I still do, and then you're seeing how it does in a big CBO with a big cap. Okay. What budget you set, it's really up to you. You need to give it, I don't know, like enough for it to make sense. Like let's say this was still $200 a lead. I probably shouldn't set the CBO budget at like 250. I might get a couple leads because Facebook will reward you on smaller budgets sometimes. But generally, like I want to give this room to breathe. I want to give it room to spend. I want to give it room to produce results. So therefore, I said $1,000, right? And it's doing great. The second strategy that we've been doing is we'll basically, like, let's say we identify after, I don't know, another like 3 to 5 days of cutting bad ad sets, ones that don't produce a conversion by, I don't know, $100, $150. And then you should land up with, I don't know, 5 to 10 ad sets that have 3 to 10 conversions, right? So I would take our best, right? So let's say it's these have 5+ conversions or whatever I want it to have. I want to duplicate this. New campaign, example, CBO bid cap. I would name it like offer name dash CBO dash, this is literally how I would do it, dash BC, the dollar, ad set. Okay, so now that we've pulled our best ads into a single ad set CBO to scale, we're going to make one little adjustment here. We're going to come down to the Advantage campaign budget. I'll set this at either 500 up to 1,000, probably 1,000 for this specific offer. I'm going to change this to big cap. And now I'm going to duplicate this. Let's say we duplicate this 9 times. Now I'm going to select all. I'm going to click here, find and replace, or edit. Okay, now we're going to select all. Here, we got our new campaigns here with duplicates. We're going to name. I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to bid just under, at, and above what I've been seeing, right? So we've been seeing 200. So I'll do probably like 180, 190, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250, 260, 270. Now, what you could also do like 150, 160, 170, 180, and go up 10 campaigns roughly that way. You could also do 5 campaigns, like you just do 190, 200, 210, 220, 230. You can do $5 increments. So you can do like 190, 195, 200, 205, right? There's no right or wrong way to do this. You just generally want to feel and test out the bids below, at, and up, far above what you've been seeing, okay? So what I'll do now, go to edit. We'll go to the actual ad set for each one of these. I'm going to scroll down to where the bid is. And I'm just going to match the bid to this, to the campaign amount. So this is 180 for this one right here. Go to the next one. This one's going to be 190. And then I go to 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250, 60, right? And 270. Boom. Okay. So now I would publish these. I got my winning ads. I've got all these different bids. Now you're probably thinking like, John, you're crazy. You're going to spend like 10 grand. Actually, I'm not. I'm lucky if I spend probably like 2 to 3 grand in a single day. And most of that spend should be within my target. Plus or minus, maybe really far below if the creatives are crushing and there's like a new baseline CPL like we saw with the last example of the creative testing. Okay, so most likely what's going to happen, the 180, 190 won't even spend anything. Maybe the 200 will. Where's our 200? And then assuming we're using like creatives that are performed similar as the original batch. That brought us $200 cost per lead plus or minus. This one might get a little bit of spend. Then you'll see maybe like 10 to 30% of the budget spend at 220, about the same at 230, 240 will probably be like 30 to 50% of the budget spend. And then 250, 260, and 270 will spend half, if not a majority of the budget. And then usually, not always, but usually. And 1 or 2 of those is going to also have really good CPL. So you might actually see that 260, which is a lower bid, spends 70% of the daily budget, but the cost per lead is like 300. It's like coming in over the big cap, or it's like right at 260. And then you might see we spend 65% of the daily budget with 270 bid, but the cost per lead comes in at 190, right? So there's no, this is exactly what you do, and then this will happen. It's more like, here's the things you test, and then generally here's what we see happens, right? That's the tricky thing, is anyone that talks with Facebook ads in absolutes doesn't know what they're talking about, because you can't control everything. There are a lot of things outside of your control. There's only generalities and patterns that you should see and expect, which sometimes don't apply, right? It is what it is. Things sucks. So that is that's our general like scaling strategy. I'm going to clear this out that is our general scaling strategy we see with big caps, cost caps. Now, something to point out as well, what we're going to do with this, where's our CBO? So going back to the first strategy I showed you, where we more or less like we split test against our auto bid single ad set ABO, lowest cost, auto bid, like it's going to do its thing. Sometimes it smashes. And we're going to duplicate that and put it into a CBO with a big cap applied. Where do I go from here? Well, if I see this continues to do well, I'm just going to increase the budget. That's it. There's nothing else. I mean, you could try like duplicating it. I haven't. I'll probably play with the bid a little bit, but most likely, like if this thing is smashing with a $200 bid, right? That bid is fitting in the auction in its way that it does, and it's getting us not just volume, but also good CPL, then I'm happy. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to let Facebook do its thing, and I'm going to try to rinse and repeat this, right? So generally, strategy 1 that I showed you here is the bid cap creative testing, where you just test the way you would with the way I teach with auto bid. Lots of ad sets, 1 ad per, or maybe 3 to 5 ads per. You duplicate the campaign, turn in the CBO, slap on a big cap that makes sense historically. And then you also can scale the way I showed with the big caps, where you split test the big caps, because maybe you don't know the right big cap. Maybe you've never ran big cap on this offer and ad account before. So therefore you need to find the bid cap. Like we've played with bid cap here already. So we kind of had a gauge and we had enough data to see a historical CPL average. So the other strategy I showed where we split test the bids is going to be from simply taking the best ads that perform in the traditional auto bid, lowest cost campaign, good CPL, consistent over time, enough data. We pull the best ads, putting them into a CBO, one ad set. You got your same 3 to 5 ads or 5 to 10 ads, whatever you choose. And then you duplicate that CBO and you put different bid caps at each. Very simple. The last strategy is a little bit similar to this kind, but it's kind of like between the two, right? So more or less, you would take your best 3 to 5 ads, you throw them into a CBO, say $1,000 a day, and you set the bid at or just above to get spent, right? So in this case, I would take the best. Let's say I didn't do the bid cap creative testing. I would look for my best ads from this creative test. Let's say these had, I don't know, after another couple days, 5+ conversions. I duplicate this new campaign and I keep it very simple. And I would literally just do one CBO with a bid cap applied, nothing else. And remember, the bid will either start like right at the break even or 10 to 20% above. And you would make adjustments to the bid. You wouldn't do this bid split testing. You do two things. There's two schools of thought here. One, you keep pumping new creatives in, what you should be doing regardless. And then two would be, we lost our duplicate here. Two, we would adjust the bid to get the spend volume we want. There's no right or wrong here, I would say. It's just both can work. It just depends on your style and what you believe is best. I talk to people that spend a lot of money, a lot more money than me, and they have like a fixed bid where they set it, forget it, don't touch it. And then I also talk to friends that play with the bid that also do similar kind of like crazy scale and volume too. So the truth is there's no one way. Anyone that tells you that there is one way probably doesn't know what they're talking about. It's the way they found that has worked for them. And you just got to experiment and play with it, right? But this all comes from having a good offer with a funnel that's already optimized and then some baseline level of good creative performance. And you might find, hey, like you have a new baseline, like you're seeing here. If I look at, so like I mentioned, we saw a baseline CPL with this offer of like $200 across every testing and scaling attempt we made before. So that was kind of like the baseline cost per conversion that we're aiming for. And through creative testing, not so much like the big cap stuff, but through just the creative testing, we're finding that we have like a new baseline. Like it's very realistic to see, heck, our new average might be like $100 lead, which is great. We literally cut our cost per acquisition in theory in half, assuming this holds through the funnel when they actually go to close and deal, right? So test these strategies out. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope that's as straightforward as it gets. To recap it, we do our own traditional one ad per ad set, ABO, lowest cost, single campaign to test a bunch of creatives and iterations. And then we duplicate that, turn it into a CBO, apply big cap around at or above what we've historically seen. Probably don't do it if you don't know if there's no data, right? So you need some kind of like reference point. And then scale that if it does well. And then you also take your best ads from the ABO testing that you run with lowest cost, and you put those into different bid caps to see where the bid cap spends. And then you run with that and you scale the one that gets volume plus good CPL. Third thing would be you just almost like set it and forget it, more or less. Like you take your best 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 ads from the ABO, you put it into one campaign, you set the big cap where you believe it should be at or generally above, and you either leave it and keep adding creatives, or you leave it, keep adding creatives, and make bid adjustments. It's really up to you. All of these will work in their own way, right? And then when it comes to cost caps, one thing I forgot to mention too, so what we do with cost caps is we do a similar split test with the actual cost cap, right? So like let's say the main difference here, having issues with duplicating today. Okay, let's go from a fresh campaign. So the main difference here with cost cap, we would take our best ads and still be on a CBO. Say it's 1,000. And then we would cost per result or cost cap, right? And then here we would test just under, I would do like 5 campaigns. Difference with cost caps is that it's gonna give you like an average of the performance rather than a big cap that in theory gives you like a hard stop at your target. So with cost caps, you're gonna see it's gonna be a little more volatile than big caps, but it's probably still been trying to scale an auto bid almost always, but not always, right? So I'm not gonna go deep into cost caps. This is really to focus on big caps. What we're doing right now, what you can test, and what works based on what we're seeing. So hope that helps. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.